Tanjiro does absolutely everything for the Kamado family. And frankly, the whole Cole situation and him going to the village was just a nice thing for him to do. So what would have happened if maybe he got hurt, sprained his ankle, rolled the ankle, so he couldn't necessarily go over to the village. He had to actually keep the charcoal there. But his younger sister, only by about a year, says, "Hey brother, I'm going to take the charcoal for you. Go down to the village, sell it, help people over there, and then come back the next day." What would have happened if Nezuko went down that mountain, went over to that village, and sold that charcoal, coming back to a Tanjiro, her older brother, almost dead, and her rest of her family completely dead? Well, Nezuko would then pick up her brother and try and drag him away. Drag him as far as possible. Now, this scenario is very scary, and frankly, I can see this going 3 different ways, and one of them isn't the nicest thing in the world. So, for starters, I could see one way being that Tanjiro actually kills Nezuko right here and right now. Now, you have to keep in mind, in terms of physical strength, Tanjiro is 1 year older than Nezuko and is shown to be vastly stronger than Nezuko. And frankly enough, Tanjiro has some pretty crazy intellect and abilities, and we've seen Tanjiro and his crazy feats, even beyond just kind of this normal version of Tanjiro that normally in canon he would be. We heard that Tanjiro had the complete and utter will to allow basically boiling water to singe and scar him to protect his family. So the fact is, would Nezuko really have the strength to hold off Tanjiro? A demon Tanjiro that could be arguably stronger than the Nezuko that briefly turned into a demon as well. In my opinion, one scenario would be Tanjiro killing his little sister. As sad as that is, that's the truth behind it. The first scenario would 100% be that Tanjiro kills Nezuko, but after Tanjiro defeats or kills his little sister, the Demon Slayer or Hashira by the name of Gyu Tomioka would show up, and he would eliminate Tanjiro, being that in my opinion, Tanjiro wouldn't be that strong. And that's just the reality of it. He would be pretty strong, but we know that a demon Tanjiro at the end of the manga would be extremely powerful because of his understanding of sun breathing, all the training he went through, and all of these things just stacked up one after another and one after another. And on top of that, Muzan pumping so much blood into him, it would be obvious that that version of Tanjiro would be extremely powerful. But this version would not be able to go heads up with someone like Tomioka. But for those who don't like the more morbid and dark ideas, and frankly I don't really like them either that much myself, I mean to an extent, but I don't want to see Nezuko, the little sister of Tanjiro, dying. Let's talk about the second way of this happening, and it's not as bad, but it might still kind of be in the regard of Nezuko ending up as a dead Demon Slayer. But let's just all remember the reality of Demon Slayer, guys. The reality of Demon Slayer is that they do not live very long. They are lucky to live past their 20s, and they would be extremely lucky to live into their 30s. So, in my opinion, Nezuko surviving against Tanjiro initially, this would lead to Tanjiro and Nezuko meeting up with Urokodaki. A sweet Nezuko maybe would remind Tomioka of the once lost friend he once had in Sabito. And he would decide, hey, you know what? I have to get them help. I have to somehow help them in general. And that's exactly what he does, sending a demon Tanjiro and a regular Nezuko to Urokodaki. Now, Nezuko would train, but here's the thing. Nezuko is no powerful being by any means. She doesn't even have the same sense of smell as Tanjiro, and maybe she would be more in depth in terms of learning sun breathing, but we don't know that at this moment, especially because, well, she's only going to learn water breathing. It would take her a while to get a good grasp on water breathing, but she's smart. It's just she's not as physically built and more or less a physical specimen, just in terms of comparing the two in terms of both Tanjiro and Nezuko. And Tanjiro is really no physical specimen in himself. He really derives off of hard work. But if you compare him and Nezuko, Tanjiro would have the upper hand as a regular human. Now, with all that said, would Nezuko even get past something like the final selection? And in my opinion, I would say most likely not. But for kind of, keeping Nezuko alive as long as possible sake, let's say the training that she has with Makomo and Sabito is as fruitful and as intense as Tanjiro's. And she goes into the final selection and is actually able to win, defeating the hand demon and going on to the very next kind of stage of being a demon slayer. I could see this version of the timeline changing a little bit, just in terms of Tanjiro himself actually kind of being a semi-strong demon. Now he's a semi-strong demon that has now changed his mindset due to kind of Urokodaki's manipulation or hypnosis. So Nezuko would have a pretty strong guidance in terms of Tanjiro. Tanjiro would probably be the forefront of everything for her, including the fights that are up and coming. The fights that with the swamp demon, or even with some of the other demons as well, like the drum demon and so on and so forth. But even with that said, there's a lot of demons here that Nezuko wouldn't be able to go heads up with without the capabilities that Tanjiro normally has. And I could see her eventually falling short, and falling drastically short. But even if she lasts long enough to get to where the Hashira mansion is, I could see her maybe leaning into the more style of Shinobu, maybe the more style of insect breathing, utilizing a poison instead, especially because her level of strength isn't crazy in the first place. But this version of Nezuko, if she does follow the same pathway as Tanjiro, would eventually die. And that's the unfortunate and likelihood of it, because that's exactly what I believe would have happened. Now, let's talk about a third version of this, and that has more to do with the power of Tanjiro. Let's say him becoming a demon perfectly combated anything he went throughout his life. The kind of the blue spider lily tea pumping through his veins more or less allowed him to kind of be this perfect demon, maybe even conquering the sun earlier or something of that sort. But even that is a little sketchy, because we all know Muzan would know. Muzan would eventually learn about him conquering the sun, so for easy sakes, let's say he doesn't, but he is a extremely powerful demon, so far stronger than what I said before. And if you compare him and Nezuko to the very beginning, he is drastically stronger than what Nezuko ever was at the very start of Demon Slayer. Drastically. So if we're talking about carrying Nezuko through this, he would 100% be able to. And if he gets his head completely wrapped around it and he starts acting very human-like, I could even see him maybe even learning sun breathing as a demon. Yeah, maybe he becomes a sparring partner for Nezuko, and you have a demon Tanjiro who is a demon slayer, and also a Nezuko who's learning how to be a demon slayer right beside Tanjiro. Of course, he couldn't go into the final selection, and maybe in the near future he would have his own little test run or his own little final selection. But at the end of the day, this would benefit Nezuko drastically, helping her all the way along the way and probably allowing her to live a lot longer. And that's a good thing to hear from me, because at the end of the day, I don't want to see poor Nezuko just die a meaningless death. So the idea that Tanjiro would be a drastically strong demon probably isn't too out of the ordinary or too out of the realm of imagination, but a Nezuko-Tanjiro duo, both being demon slayers and Tanjiro being a demon himself, would allow for Nezuko to fight some of these stronger demons she wouldn't be able to go against in the first place. And when meeting up with Inosuke, and Zenitsu, they would make for a very formidable team. But in terms of journey and travel, Tanjiro would still have to go inside some sort of box, and at least during the day, but once the nighttime would fall is where he would have all his advantages. And frankly enough, Inosuke and Zenitsu wouldn't be too kind of crazy about this idea of some older guy being a demon. It's kind of scary. They wouldn't really like the idea, but Nezuko would be very, very persistent that this is her brother, and this is someone that will help them all the way along the way. And this would be proven true, especially against the fight against Rui, because in my opinion, this version of Tanjiro would be able to clash and maybe even defeat Rui. Yes, defeat him. Because in this version, Tanjiro is far stronger, far more OP, and his abilities begin to manifest the more and more he sleeps, and the more and more they journey throughout kind of this world of Demon Slayer. Now, in terms of meeting the other Hashira, it is a bit of an awkward conversation telling them that a demon is a literal demon slayer, but hey, they're gonna have to get over it because Tanjiro being completely separated from Muzan is one thing, but his power could eventually eclipse someone like Muzan in terms of potential. And once he conquers the sun in the near future of arcs, it will be something of an absolute spectacle. And a demon slayer, and it's a bit of a mouthful, but a demon slayer Tanjiro would be able to definitely help in the fight of the Infinity Castle. Now, how well will Nezuko fight? I'm not so sure. In my opinion, she would kind of be at a lower level of even someone like Kanao. And I hate to say that, but she would probably be drastically lower than someone like her. Now, with that said, I know I said I was only going to talk about 3 different ideas, but let's talk about a 4th. Because this 4th is so outlandish and so drastically insane that I personally actually made a fanfiction about it, or a what if about it, a long time ago. This was called What If Tanjiro and Nezuko Swapped Roles. And I knew, of course, that Nezuko would be drastically underpowered. So I decided, you know what, let's give her something like Tanjiro in terms of a scent, kind of being able to smell and smell out a killing blow. But instead of being able to have some insane smell, her eyesight is actually insane. In this reality, Nezuko's eyesight allows her to actually slow down time. Of course, not literally, but it allows her to see things in a slower wave. And once she's able to see in a slower wave, it allows her to strike more precisely and actually gives her the upper hand on some demons, if not the mass majority. On top of that, I made it so Tanjiro was a pretty darn strong demon, not as strong as I would have made him in the 3rd version of this what if, but this version of Nezuko would 100% be able to keep up with the mass majority of demons and would be able to learn from some of the Hashira very quickly. Because her ability to kind of see the world slower and at a different pace, once she has her body catch up, she is a lethal and an absolute deadly force to be reckoned with. Now, that is 4 options of the idea of what if Tanjiro became a demon instead of Nezuko, but I would love to hear what y'all think in the comment section below about what would have happened if Tanjiro did become a demon instead of Nezuko, if they swapped roles, if Nezuko became a demon slayer and Tanjiro became a demon at the start of Demon Slayer. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like I said, if you enjoy the video, or if you did enjoy the video, leave a like, leave a sub, and always, like I said, leave a comment down below. And I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I hope y'all have an amazing day. Later.